Sometimes I feel like I want to fly without no wings. I elevate inside.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Barkoff, and I am the Sober Cold Bear, and welcome to another episode of the Sober Cold Bear podcast. And here we go, man. Round two. Shall we do it?
Round two. It almost was like you couldn't remember the name of your podcast for like a split second there.
No, I know. Sometimes I have a little bit of like a brain fart. It just kind of happens.
Just blacking out in real time, even sober. I love it.
Doesn't that happen to you? It happens to me all the time. I get these kind of momentary lapse of reason, and it just kind of goes that way.
I live in a perpetual brownout, is what it seems like, which is fine. I'm fine with it. It's better than blacking out on the train. You know what I mean?
Perpetual brownouts. I haven't heard that, but I'm not going to touch one.
Okay.
There's a story behind that.
Round two.
Yes. So everybody knows from first episode, Mr. Jason Mayo is here. And welcome back, my friends. Good to see you, and looking forward to this conversation now that the book's out.
Good to see you too, man. And I appreciate you having me back. I love your podcast, and I love you.
I love you too. I love you too. Just to let everybody know, this is my little spiel before we get into the conversation. First of all, I am not a medical doctor, and so anything that I offer on here is complete bullshit. No, I'm just kidding. What I do say to everybody is this is not a place to go if you want to get sober. This is a resource to you. There are things to do when you do want to get sober, which is what Jason and I do. We go to AA, we go to meetings, we have sponsors. You can go to rehab, which I always say I probably should have gone to rehab, but I didn't. I figured it out, and all is good. But it starts with kind of the simple, I just need help. And it's good to ask for help if you need help. This is a very lonely disease. Being an addict sucks. Fucking sucks. It sucks hard. And but getting sober is pretty amazing if you can get past that, because the life that you can lead after that is pretty unreal. And Jason and I are two examples of that.
Maybe not the best examples. Let's back up for a second. We are not role models, guys.
No.
At all. You should see us struggling before the podcast starts together. You're tripping over each other. He can't get his mic working. It's like it's a horror show.
It's a total shit show. But you know what? That is my life. My life is a complete shit show. The question is, can I actually have an organized shit show or a complete fucking mess of a shit show? So I've got a pretty organized shit show, which is much better than the opposite, right? Than the alternative.
I think you're doing okay. I think so
too. I think you're doing okay too. All right, let's get into it. So let's go back to the book, and the book is now out for it'll be a month and 2 days. It came out on the 8th of September. Is that right?
The 9th. Shit, I didn't even realize that. That's right. That's scary. Wow,
that's crazy. How has the book been doing? How have you been? How has the experience been? And who have you talked to? And give us the update.
I've been awesome. Wait, before we get into it, did you talk to my buddy Jeff yet? Did you have contact with him yet?
Oh man, come on. Say it again.
I asked, did you talk to my buddy Jeff yet? Did you guys have contact? What are you doing in my picture there?
What's freaking happening?
Didn't we have to start over last time?
We did, and I don't know what the fuck is going on. Anyways, keep going.
I bet this didn't happen with Chris Herron.
Did you enjoy that episode, by the way?
I loved it.
I loved it. Good guy.
I told you, I love the dynamic of both of them. I thought that was awesome. He's an incredible guy, and it seems like they're doing really good work, and you can tell he's passionate about it. Not concerned.
He's a crazy story, man, just like everybody.
Yeah. So I was asking, did you talk to my friend Jeff yet?
We have not connected.
Okay.
But we will. I did actually email him. I thought I'd maybe give him a call tomorrow because because I'm now releasing a podcast every kind of 2-3 weeks. We did it. I was releasing I was crazy. I was just nutty. I was just putting it out. So now I'm 20. I think you're episode 26. So
slowing down is good. Self-care, man.
Yeah, but it's been good. It's been good to slow down and kind of piece them out. And I'm I'm kind of getting lazy on like the social posts and everything, but it's been good. Anyways, so tell me,
Yeah.
how's been the book? How's been the reception of the book? Like, I mean, you've done an incredible job writing this thing. So like, what has the world been saying about it?
It's been an experience. It's been definitely a whirlwind. The first month has been, I mean, first there was just nerves, right? I mean, especially before release, because the closer it got, the more I didn't realize what the fuck I had just done. I was like, I can't believe it's actually going to be out there in the world. And it's weird. Like the people that I don't know, right? And the people that are out there that might pick up the book through somebody else or just seeing it on Amazon or whatever it is, I wasn't really concerned about that, because it's I don't feel connected to those people, and I wanted to get into as many hands as possible. But it's the people that I know from, you know, kindergarten and sleepaway camp and college and my past jobs. That's what I was nervous about. Right. And it's weird because I talk to so many people all the time about recovery, but there's still, I think there was a little bit memoir and all, sober not sought a website, being in the profession, even with all that, there's still a little bit of like a little shame, right? Maybe still a little bit of shame and a little bit of stigma.
Shame for the shit that you did, shame for the things that you did, shame for the, you know, embarrassment because you basically unraveled your soul in front of the world in a book, and everybody basically knows exactly what the fuck you did and how you did it and what you did. So like, who gives a shit?
I think it's maybe fear of being judged in a way. I think because, a lot of people knew me as this, really outgoing, friendly, always happy, always has his shit together type of person. And, it's almost like even though I was sick and I was still, functioning on the outside, there's still a part of it that's like, I don't want them to think that I was a total broken person, you know? But then I'm like, but that's the
But
whole
you,
point of the book,
but you
you
work.
know? Yeah, that's the whole point of the book though. And
It's funny. I had and I told my wife this. I had an epiphany last week, and I was upstairs. I was working out, and been a really long day, and quite frankly, it's been a really shitty day. And I was sitting in my emotions. I was sitting in my fear, and I started sitting there, and I was like, literally, all I'm doing is I'm consuming myself by all the bad that can actually happen, all the bad shit that could come out of whatever, right? And things all happen for a reason, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. They're all lessons. But we spend so much time sitting in our discomfort, sitting in our fear. Even, we're self-sabotaging. We
mhm.
self-sabotage ourselves, especially like I think addicts do it more than anyone. And but what I came to realize is that we drive ourselves crazy, bonkers by actually sitting in that fear versus just like saying, it's going to pass and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's living in the wreckage of the future is what I've heard, which I think is great. But for me, I just had to keep going back and talk to the people in my network and the people that I trust, the people that encourage me and that are positive. Just to remember what the mission is, right? The mission is to always to break the stigma, to normalize the conversation around mental health and addiction, especially with men, and just to make people feel less alone. I have to constantly keep reminding myself of that it's not about, just like you hear in the rooms, right? It's not about me. It's about why I did this, which is to help people. And if I have to have a few uncomfortable conversations along the way and explain to people what was going on, because I've had a lot of texts, right? And a lot of emails and DMs and all this stuff from people from the past. And I got a DM from a guy from college who I was really good friends with, and we played hockey together and we were in fraternities and all this stuff. And we ran together a lot too. And he's like, Mayo, I always thought you had your shit together, man. What the fuck? Like, but he was like saying it in a concerned way. A lot of my friends are like, how did I not see the signs? And could I have done more? And I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. So I feel like that's like part of that makes me uncomfortable because even though I want to have the conversations, it's still I have to unpack it every single time I talk to somebody, which can be uncomfortable, you know?
I had my buddy Matt on the podcast, and we talked about high functioning addicts, and I think for me, like I had the same thing. Like a lot of people when actually I was at the gym today before we started the podcast, and I got a random call from a dude I hadn't heard from 30 years, and he heard my podcast,
Mhm.
and he called me, and he's like, "Dude, your podcast is fucking awesome." He's like, "Your cold plunge, like I cold plunge and all this shit, right?" And just randomly, people have no idea, but then they also like, I had no idea, like every time that I saw you that you were like high or whatever, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I was fucked up.
So do you get into it with them? Are you willing to have that conversation on the spot, or are you reserved? Or I mean, you're
No,
pretty outgoing with it.
I'm no, I'm pretty outgoing, man. I wear it with a badge of honor,
Mhm.
because I figure like it's better not to hide anything or lie about it, or not, I guess not lie. I think sugarcoat is probably a better word for it. Like the shit that I've done, and the like for instance, the other night, I had a friend over, and he he was sitting there. He's like, "Man, I got to ask you a question." He's like, "I heard that the because I first got sober in 2021." He's like, "I heard that um you in a day during an 18-hole golf game with a friend went through an entire bottle of vodka. Is that true?" I said, "Yes, it's absolutely true." I swear
Yes.
to God. Yes, it is. I said, "I got a bottle of fucking Hanger One, like one of the big bottles of Hanger One, and I fucking drank that thing through 18 holes. Don't remember the last five. Don't
Mm.
remember driving to the Mexican restaurant for dinner, doing shots of tequila. Don't remember driving home." But I said, "Yeah." And I have no shame in sharing my past, because, it's better that way. I think it's easier for it just shows the human element to kind of who you are, and that you're vulnerable, versus like I think a lot of people go through life and just you aren't in touch with anything. But
Yeah. The good thing is definitely the conversations that I've had or the emails that I've gotten, um, just from people from my old profession and people that I've known for a really long time. Some of them well and some of them not so well. But just the emails and the messages, my brother died of an overdose when he was, 18. And I don't really talk about it. Or I had an opioid addiction in 2003 and I really never talked about it and I'm okay now. Or, there was one woman who was a client of mine
mm,
and she got sober probably about 4 or 5 years after I did, but we were working on a long job together, so she was at my place a lot, and she said that she was having a panic attack in early sobriety at my office and had to go into the conference room and talk to her sponsor for, like, a half an hour,
no
and
kidding.
I'm sober, and I'm like we were just, like, talking about it, I was like, "Oh my god," like, imagine we knew we were sober, we coulda helped each other. So, all these things are happening and coming out, and that's been really nice knowing that people are comfortable reaching out and talking about that stuff, even if it's not in front of people. But just knowing again that you know, if it happened to Jason and he seemed like he had his shit together, and then maybe it's not so fucked up that it was happening to me. Because everybody has this image that they want to uphold and that they think people need to see. So it's again stigma and
How did
shame.
you, how did you, because I mean, I can't even imagine like the amount of people that would, and that come to you and kind of tell you about their personal stories, the people they've lost, their own struggles. Um, but think about the lives that you've been able to actually impact as a result of what you've shared, and possibly, who you've helped in the midst of this. Maybe there's been somebody that read your book or knows of you that was thinking about getting sober. And as a result of reading your book, they decided to actually start getting sober. You know what I mean? It's the same
Yeah.
thing with this podcast. I've had people reach out to me and saying, because of listening to you, I actually started really thinking about using and drinking, and I've decided to stop drinking for a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's just kind of hitting me a little bit. Like you said, it's almost a month since the book came out. And, there was that initial push of people that, picked the book up that were either on my early readers list or people that knew me, right? And that was like the first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And now it's interesting because, I look at the book sales and stuff, not for the money, but I want to know what the reach is, right? Because
Yeah, of course.
spoiler alert, authors don't make a lot of money, okay? That's we're not getting rich off of selling a book like this.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I'm checking and
it's the same thing with the podcast. I'm not doing it
yeah,
to make
that's
money.
not why you do it.
I'm doing this to help others. I'm doing this to
Yeah.
a big part of recovery is the service piece.
Yeah.
This is a
So
service piece that you did.
yeah, no,
Well,
and it's
so
just it's a natural extension from what I've been doing over the last couple of
yeah.
years, but it's interesting because now, there's a trickle. So every day there's more and more books that are sold, and it's a trickle. So now I know that it's gone outside of the base of the people who I've known because people have recommended it to people that have recommended it to people that have recommended it to people. So,
Mm,
reviews are coming in that, a lot of people I have no idea who they are,
mm.
leaving reviews on Amazon. And I made this Facebook group for the book itself.
Yep,
And there's a ton of people on that group that
I'm
I have
part of
no
that.
idea who they are. Yeah, I just don't know who these people are. So that's been really, really nice. And I did my first reading a couple of weeks ago, which was nerve wracking. Because it's one thing to talk about your story and another thing to actually read it to people, right?
Yep.
Um, I was telling a story about when I did my 12-step work for the first time with my sponsor. We were sitting and we were about to do that fifth step, right? Where I was going to read everything to him and talk about it. And I had it in my
Dude, you have fucking
mind.
87 you have
Yeah. Yeah.
87 reviews. Well,
It's getting up there.
this
My
is
goal was to
fucking
get 50. My goal was to get 50, but
shit. What the
it's good,
fuck?
man. It's good. It's like, it's got some traction, for a small book. It's got some traction. I'm grateful. But so I was saying when I did my fifth step with my sponsor, right? I brought this big, marble notebook that was full, and I had some shit in there that I did not know if I was going to tell him that day or not.
Mm,
Right? I was going to read it and I might
yeah.
skip it. You know how that is. I might skip through it. I did not know it was if I could get up the courage. And the second I sat down with him, he took the book out of my hands and he said, I'll do the reading. And I was like, fuck, that's it. So reading the book to people at like a reading, it's like, when somebody's reading it to themselves, and we can talk about that's one thing, but to have to read and hear your own voice tell your story to people that are sitting in front of you when you can't leave anything out was nerve wracking. And,
Yeah.
it was fulfilling in the end, but, looking out at the people who were there for the reading, and I had people show up from like that I haven't seen in 30 years, like people from elementary school. It was crazy. It was crazy.
So
It was
that's incredible. So tell me about and then I want to jump to I want you to go through a couple excerpts of some parts that and again we haven't scripted this and
yeah, yeah.
this is completely off the cuff. Tell me about one outreach that you heard from somebody that you didn't know and something that was like really meaningful, and because I know you've kind of gotten into it, like, and obviously for the purpose of anonymity, don't name names or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Just tell me about something that like really hit you between the eyes, that was like really moving for you, that was like really, that was really meaningful. Like, give me an example. Give me some meat here.
Yeah. There's a lot of them. And, I've had a lot of people reach out about their kids that have kids that are struggling, and that always is hard to listen to because I was that kid that was doing that to my mom, right, and had her worrying and stuff. So it resonates, and I'm also a parent, so I understand that too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of people that, reached out and say, "Hey, I have 3 months sober," and, and people that I've known from my past. But the couple of things that one of the things that really, really touched me was people have reached out to me about my mom. Okay. Because my mom in the story, like, you can look at it a couple of ways. Like, you can look at her as she's just this very, vulnerable, person who, got walked all over by her husband who left her and all that stuff. Or you can really interpret it, which is I think most people did, as a really strong fucking woman who wound up being a single mom, having two jobs to support the family, two boys that were like hellfire, and got it done, and is still here to talk about it. So I had somebody reach out to me that that's a mom and having issues with her kid, her young kid. And she did not know what to do, and she felt lost and she felt powerless. And she reached out to me, and I don't have it in front of me, but she said something to the effect of, I just read the book and I really, really am your mom's story is resonating with me, and it's making me feel a lot less alone because I feel so powerless going through this with my kid, and I feel like a lousy mom, and I don't know what I'm doing. And just reading about your mom and how she handled it and how everything is okay now and that you have a relationship with her. My mom, I happened to be with my mom. We were upstate, and we were in a little grocery store. And this is like a week and a half after the book came out. And I was looking at it as I was with my mom, and I just handed it to her. And she got really emotional because, it's my story, but at the same time it was scary for her to have this go out there too, right? Because this is her life and it's her story, but she's been so supportive. So it was kind of like this nice moment where I was able to show my mom, you're already helping people with your story. Single mom, woman of divorce, that's trauma that you
Yeah.
went through. And now people are able to relate to it. So whether you know it or not, you're going to help a lot of people with your story. And I think she was really touched by that, and we had like that little moment of like, wow, I think we're doing the right thing, you know?
One of the topics that I have been intending on doing that I need to, and I'm trying to think about like who I'm gonna bring on to do it. But the topic is about like what's it like having a child in addiction and how to handle it and how to get through it.
Yeah.
I think it's one thing to talk about kind of our own personal stories. It's another thing to actually be like a son or a daughter that's like actively in it. I have friends that have kids that are in recovery. I have a couple friends they've had to like perform CPR on their kid in their room because they found them basically, dead to rights after ODing in their room. And
Right.
and and I've heard all sorts of different things around like, um because they want their kids to be okay, right? They want their children to be well, they want their kids to have the best life, but yet they've got this disease, and it's like how far do I take my kid? How far do I take things with my kid? Because you can't, again, you know, you can't get sober until you actually say, I'm getting sober. You just can't. I
Yeah.
don't I don't think any amount of rehab or AA meeting or intervention is going to fucking change when it's your time, it's your fucking time. Period, full stop. And I will say that till I go to my grave. And that's just me. Your opinion's different maybe, who knows? It doesn't matter. My opinion is like you can't help somebody unless they want to be helped and they have to ask
Right.
for it. And that's like a really fucking hard thing for a parent. Like, I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. Can't even imagine.
Well, especially because as a parent, and you know this, and I know this, inherently you want to take care of your child. right? I mean, it starts out with the diapers and the feeding, and like the child is helpless. They can't do anything on their own. And as that kid gets a little older and a little older, they start to be more independent and need us less. And as a parent, that's such a weird feeling when your kid doesn't need you as much. And then when, your kid is old enough to be, exposed to dangers and challenges, and you can't really do much about it. It's like it's the most helpless, powerless feeling
Yeah.
to know that something could pop. Like the first time I talked about this with this guy Steven, another guy, podcast, great guy. You guys should actually be on each other's podcasts. But he was talking about the first time he watched his kid drive away in the car
Mm.
when his kid got the driver's license.
Oh
The
God.
sinking feeling.
Weeks.
Yeah, the sinking feeling of like, oh my God,
Yeah.
there they
Zero.
go.
Yeah. Zero
Yeah.
control.
I have something for you. Like, so you're talking about wanting to do a podcast on that. So, um, I went to DC,
Mm.
not this past weekend, but the weekend before. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was invited to be on an author panel, sit on an author panel. And the event was called The Trail of Truth. Okay. It's put on by an organization called Truth Farm. And what it is the Trail of Truth is a memorial, okay, for loved ones and people that have been lost to overdose and drug-related issues, drug-related deaths. And what they do is it's basically an art installation. So people from all over the country, maybe even the world, but all over the country, send in information about the people that they've lost, pictures, dates, all that stuff. And these people decorate and make these tombstones. Okay, I don't know if it's made out of cardboard or whatever it is, but they paint them black and they put the person's picture and the year they were born, the year they died, their name. They write a little something that the parents sent in. And in Washington D.C., on the National Mall, right where the monument is, that long strip of
Sure.
grass, a couple hundred yards, whatever it is,
Sure.
they laid out 3,800 tombstones.
Wow.
Okay. Just a sea of black tombstones with people's faces on it, organized by state. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And there's rallies, there was music, people speaking. And
Oh,
it's basically just all families that are there that have lost loved ones. I met a woman who
so,
lost
so you
3
met
kids to overdose.
3?
3. And what I'm saying is I have so many people that are outspoken and leaders in that movement that would be willing to talk with you on the
You
podcast. And it's a
connect me with,
powerful thing, but
yeah, can you connect me with Alexis?
yeah, I can actually. I'll make
Okay.
that introduction for
All right.
sure.
I want to meet her because
She's amazing.
so here's the thing, man. Like, God forbid, God forbid, because I look when my kids, I'm very open about my recovery with them. They're part of that, right? And they see kind of they've seen the before and they've seen the after, right? Um, my wife and I are have always been very open about like when you go to a party and somebody fucking offers you a pill, like think twice, or somebody puts a line out, like think twice, because there's
Yeah.
fentanyl. Like if I, for the amount of cocaine that I did and everything else, like I should probably be dead or, whatever. Right. Um, but I think the biggest thing that I think about around this topic is just the lack. I don't have any control when my daughter drives away. I don't have any control when my son is down in college and what parties he goes to, or you don't have any control over this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the fear of not being there that scares the shit out of me and probably a lot of parents.
It also makes you realize what I realized being there. And I wrote an article for Sober Not Subtle about my experience there. And, I said that, I tried to describe how I was feeling when I'm walking into the middle of those tombstones. And, aside from being emotional and overwhelmed
Yeah.
and angry and all this stuff, like outraged, I also felt extremely lucky to be alive. Okay. because, you know, the amount of stuff that we were into, if it was back when fentanyl was a thing,
You're
I
dead.
I could be dead.
I,
And I
I,
didn't lose that.
I would be.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it.
But that wasn't lost on me. So it really allowed me to take in the moment and the gravity of what was going on, and, you know, connecting with these, and it was mostly women, mostly moms and aunts and grandmas and all that stuff, to connect with those women, because I had a tent with two other authors. We were selling books and stuff at the event all day. So, and it was right in the middle of everything. So, you know, people would just come over and either buy a book or I probably gave away more books than I sold that day, just because what am I going to do? Right. I'm just like, take it, just take it. But I got to talk to so many people and just hear some stories and connect with people. And I was exhausted when I left the next day, like mentally, emotionally.
That's a good exhaustion though, because you did so much cool service work and you helped so many people and shit like that. Yeah, man. Yeah, please introduce me to Alexis. All right. Let's let's spend a little bit of time. I want you to read a couple of little excerpts.
Mm-hmm.
Let's spend a few minutes talking about each one, and then we'll we'll wrap up.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't even know if I showed the book, but that's the book in
Mm-hmm.
all its glory.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So it's called in case of emergency break childhood. It came out
Yeah.
on September 9th, and it's
Mm-hmm.
almost a month now, and it's available on Amazon and where else?
BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com, like pretty much every single online outlet that you can think of.
Are you going to do
Um,
a book for it?
I am. I'm actually in the middle of recording it right now.
Sure.
I'm hoping sometime in December, but it's very slow.
Yeah. Where's that
It's hard.
is that gonna come out on like Apple Podcasts? Is that gonna come
Yeah,
out?
yeah. No, it'll be on Audible and all that stuff. It'll
Okay, great.
Yeah. Once you hit the distribution is, you know, basically every platform that's out there. So it'll be all over the place. Um, but you know, it's funny because I do have a book that is all bookmarked and highlighted of passages. I didn't realize I was going to do that, so I don't have that in front of me. But I do want to say that there is one chapter in the book that I don't need to read from, but I just want to say when I was done with the book, okay, and I thought that I had a final manuscript, and my wife Ronnie had read it. Um, there was just something that was gnawing at me and something that was bugging me, and it was the way I portrayed my dad in the book, okay? Because it wasn't flattering, you know, the picture that I had painted of him. And not because of who he is, but because it's how I saw it when I was 9 years old,
Okay.
right? So even though I'm telling the story now and things are different with my dad and I and my mom and that still was my perspective. Is he walked out, he left. He was never around. You know, I felt like I wasn't loved. I wasn't getting the attention, that he picked another family over our, like all these things is, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, aside from like the acknowledgement in the back, I really didn't say many nice things about my dad. And so I was like, I don't know if should I write a chapter about my dad and about like the good things that happened with my dad and the good memories. And you know, I talked about it with my wife and I talked about it with the publisher, and I was just like, the consensus was, if you're just writing it because you feel bad, then you might not have to write it, you know, because that's not what this book is about. But if you feel that it adds to the story, then you write it.
That
And I wound
I mean, with all due respect, right? It's not about your dad.
no, it's
Not about
not.
and it's not about your mom either.
No.
Despite you paying homage to your mom through the stories and
Yeah.
through through the words, right? Because you really did your mom just a fuck ton of justice in this thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you really painted her as a superhero for sure.
Yeah. And
Because
she was.
she really did. She stepped the fuck up, right? Versus, you know, the other side of it where it's just everything just disappeared. You had nothing, right? And there's a lot of baggage to that. You shouldn't have to ever think that, you know, and again, that just kind of goes back to like, you know, we always regress when we're in front of our parents. It's weird, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
52. And I still get around my parents and I fucking regress. I don't know why. It's weird, but whatever. You don't have to ever feel like you need to, because this is for you, right? This is not for anybody else. It's for you. It's for your own program.
You
And
know,
so,
no, I get it. I get it. And I came to terms with that. But what happened was, I did sit down and I said to myself, okay, let me just get back to the laptop, and I don't have to make it like I'm writing a chapter, but let me start to list all the memories that I have of being with my dad when I was that age.
hmm,
Through all the craziness and all the fucking shit and all the emotions and abandonment and all that stuff. And man, I hadn't thought about so many things in so long. I was so caught up in telling the story about, you know, how distraught I was and how abandoned I felt and all that stuff that I forgot about some of those good memories. Like, so I wrote this chapter. It's called I Want You to Want Me, which is, one of the reasons why I wrote it is because, yes, I wanted him to want me. But we always listened to this tape in his shitty Datsun B210 when we would drive to New Jersey for the weekend every other weekend. And it was like this one of those K-Tel mixtapes. And the first song on it, one of the first songs was Cheap Trick, live at Budokan, I Want You to Want Me. So I have this distinct memory of listening to I Want You to Want Me in that
I
car. So
want you
yeah.
to want me. Yeah, I love that
So
song.
I wrote that chapter, and I just remembered I remembered baseball catches, like how I used to bring my baseball mitt and how he'd teach me how to oil the baseball mitt and tie the rope around it with the baseball and it, put it under the mattress. How we used to, he used to cook pancakes and bacon and eggs, and the way he used to put the egg on top of the pancakes, and how we blast Neil Diamond throughout the house, and how I pitched to him and he'd make pretend that I was throwing so fast that like he would shake his hand, and like the pop-ups he would throw, and it was just like all these things came flooding back to me. And I thank God, because I wound up writing this chapter and it felt so right, and I'm so happy that it's in there, because my dad is a human being, and I always say, like, people do the best they can with what they have at the time, right? So that's how I see it now. Like, I know my dad, I know him for all the good stuff, all the flaws, just like any human being. But my relationship with him now, because I understand him, is so much different. So even though that's not the way I saw it when I was that age, there were times that were worth mentioning,
Hmm.
to show that other side. So I don't know. It's just one of those chapters that almost didn't make it into the book. So, I feel like it was just something that I'm so glad that it happened. And like everything else in this freaking book, it brought back so many memories. The more I wrote, the more I remembered. And that was really hard to experience all this again as I was writing it. Um there's there's a chapter. Go ahead. I was gonna say something while I'm looking
You
for
ever,
this, but
do you ever, are you getting tired at all about talking about your book yet? Or are you, is it, are you on autopilot, or like where kind of, where do you sit on all this? Because I mean, I could see it becoming a very, because I'm sure as you continue to expand, right, as more and more people learn about it, and you go and you get more and more acknowledgement, and you get more followers and you get more reviews and all, like you're gonna, it's gonna, people are gonna come up to you and say, oh, my favorite part of the book was this, or my favorite thing was that, and or this or that or whatever. I mean, it's gotta be tiresome. It's gotta be mentally taxed, because you're literally not only talking about the book, you're essentially talking about yourself in the third person in every
yeah.
conversation, every interaction, right?
Well, what it is it's almost like it's not even talking about it, and it's not even like picking scabs anymore. It's reliving it. Right? Because
Mm,
all the things that are in this book, all the detail, was stuff that I never thought about ever, especially all these years later. But now that the details are all there and the memories have all come back, to have to read this stuff out loud and to talk about it in detail, because everybody's got a different question about a different part of the book. So it's almost like reliving it
mm,
all over again, the memories that I had put away for so long. So I'm not tired of talking about it. Um, Sometimes it's nice to hear feedback, like I love the book. Like that's always nice to hear. I love the book. It really helped me. I can really relate. It's nice to know that people connect because it's my story, and it's nice to know, just like it is when we go to a 12-step program, that there are other people that understand us, that we can identify with. So, but again, the actual, like at readings, I'm scaling back on that stuff because I find that when I know it's going to happen, when a reading's going to happen or something like that, I start to get a little antsy, right, about the actual event. And then when it happens, I feel great and I feel better. But no, I'm not tired of talking about it. I mean, I like talking about it. It's emotional, but I guess that's what it's all about. I feel like that's what I'm meant to do right now,
I mean, I think making light of a very heavy topic and being able to talk about it and bring it, up in a very, conversational way. I told you this when we did our first session together, right? Like the way that the book reads is the same way that you are when we have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's why it's such a fucking great resource, because you can identify with this shit. And despite, maybe you don't have like a dad that walked out, or, your story is different, but you can identify with it because it's real, and
Yeah.
it's raw, and it's unfiltered.
Yeah.
And you don't get that a lot in something like this, especially in a topic like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something you should be very proud of. It's something that you need to pat yourself on the back for and give yourself like a ton of grace for, man.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. I do.
Sure, Jason.
um, there's one chapter, and obviously I'm not going to read a chapter, but there's one chapter that I've been reading at these readings and events, and it's something that I wasn't going to read initially, but I
Right?
feel like it describes how I felt when I knew that I couldn't drink anymore, but at the same time, I couldn't picture not drinking. And if that sounds familiar to you, the inspiration for that chapter came directly from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So
Okay.
there's a chapter, the last chapter in the book, it's called A Vision for You.
Huh.
And one of the paragraphs in that is something that when I read it, when I first got sober, it blew me away and it made me cry. And it still does when I read it because it described perfectly how I felt when I tried to stop drinking on my own and I couldn't. And there's a part in that chapter in the big book that says, he cannot picture life with alcohol or without it. He is at the jumping off place and he will wish for the end.
Mm.
And I was like, I need to write a chapter about how I felt when I tried to quit. And so there's a chapter, it's called White Knuckles and a Broken Parachute. And it's about when I had hit multiple bottoms and I realized that the jig was up and I needed to do something. And I had talked to my brother who had exposure to the program because his wife's in recovery. So he was an Al-Anon guy and all this stuff. I asked him, I said, what do I do? Like, I need to stop drinking. And he said, try to stop for 90 days. And if you can't, it's going to get worse. Right. Because I wasn't going to go to a meeting or anything. And so this chapter was about trying to quit for 90 days and how white knuckling it was just torture. It
Hmm.
was absolute torture. And there's like a couple of sentences that I love. It's right here. It says, okay, so every place I went made me crave a drink. The Buddha said suffering arises from craving. Dude was right. I was definitely craving and I was absolutely suffering. The only way I can describe it, it's like getting bitten by a werewolf and starting to change, but getting stuck halfway through. Claws half pierced through your fingertips, spine half curled, legs half hyperextended and broken backward. the whole fucking lot of it. That's what it felt like. Just trapped, the jumping off point. You know, I'll get emotional if I keep reading it, but that comes directly from how that chapter in the big book, A Vision for You, made me feel.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's one of the more intense chapters, and it's not easy to read, and I always cry when I read it.
Mm.
But it's something that, like, especially for parents that have children that are, sick, that are in their active addiction, or, wives or husbands that have spouses or whatever it might be, friends, I thought it was important for them to know what it felt like from the other side and how you can't control it,
It
and
is
it's real.
it's so hard to try and explain to somebody that surrender point, because you can't explain it to anybody until it actually happens. You know, I tell my sponsor quite often that, the first couple of years, when I first got sober, I really wasn't like mentally there sober wise, and I certainly wasn't spiritually sober, because it's not just about the non-drinking. There's kind of three parts to it. There's the not actual using,
Yeah.
there's the mental sobriety, and there's the spiritual sobriety of things.
Right.
And if you can't have those first two, then like you're fucked.
Right.
And so I kind of say, the first kind of 18 months, 2 years where I was sober, I really didn't even like do step one, because I
Right.
didn't surrender to it. So, it takes a lot to kind of get through that step one, which is actually interesting because, most rehabs literally don't go past step one. They focus just on step one.
Right.
And, I didn't know that until I've met a lot of people that I've become very close with in the program that did go to rehab. And I always ask them, and they're like, no, I only went through step one.
Yeah.
Because once you can actually get through step one, then you can actually start doing the work. You,
Yeah.
you can get into the actual like meaning behind all of it, and then start finding your higher power, and then start finding your resentments and ultimately the character defects that you find in those, and then making amends with those and asking for forgiveness from those. But until you actually go through step one, like, it ain't going to work. And so
Yeah.
that's when you're going to white knuckle it. That's when you're going to be curled up in the ball, like what you were just talking about, on a, just helpless and
Yeah.
hopeless.
Let me tell you something quick about step one, right? Because 15 years later, I'm still evolving. My recovery is evolving, and it's getting richer, and it's getting
100%.
fuller. Yeah, and I'm learning so many new things along the way.
Yeah, that's life too. But yes.
It is, and with being sober, we can have our eyes and ears open now, so we can accept new things that come to us,
Oh, we
right,
also
and
know what
learn
to
new things.
watch. We know what to watch for. We know how to, yeah, for sure.
So this is something that clicked for me in the last 6 months or so. I had written an article about how my addiction, even now, tends to shift to different places if I'm not in a good place. Okay. So, just because drugs and alcohol were my addiction, it doesn't mean that if I'm, not feeling spiritual and not feeling fit, or I'm not, I'm lacking on my program, I can eat like 2 sleeves of Oreos and feel like a big pig. Right. And then afterwards go, I can't believe I did that, and I say to myself, I'll never do that again. And then the next day I'm doing it again. And
You will.
and I know it sounds funny and like it's a joke, but that can happen with people. It can happen with porn. It can happen with gambling. It can happen with shopping online. Your addiction can go different places. So I always beat myself up about that. I always have. Okay. And so I wrote this article about eating the Oreos and all that stuff. And this woman emailed me, and she happens to be a psychologist, a therapist. She's a doctor,
Mm.
and she emailed me and she said, "Just read your article, and this is what I want to tell you. And I'm going to paraphrase, but there are 6 types of DNA, and they're called DRDs. I think it's 6. And what it is out of those DNA, if you have 2 of them, 2 specific ones, you could be prone to risky behavior and addiction."
Hmm.
Okay. So she said, and I bet that you have those two pieces of DNA.
You're like, I have
So,
5.
right. But so what she said to me though is she said, if you just think to yourself, rather than beat yourself up and wonder why it's going here and there and there, just think to yourself, if you have that DNA, just know that that is literally the way your brain is hotwired. And it's always been hotwired like that, and it will always be hotwired like that. So if you can just not beat yourself up and accept it and try to live your life around that part of you instead of always trying to live in it, then it'll be a lot easier for you to move on. And I was like, wow, you know, I've always said I should try to exercise instead of eating more, but just thinking to myself, like, wow, this is who I am. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just literally in my DNA.
Yeah.
It's who I am. It's how I'm wired. And I can live around that, and I don't have to let it control me. So, all these years later, it's another way to look at step one. Like the book says, it's an allergy of the body and the mind, obsession of the mind, allergy of the body. And that might work for some people. Some people might say an allergy. I don't know, an allergy, but to hear it that way, like it felt like a step one experience all over again.
Mhm.
And there's a chapter in the book about that very thing that talks about like going back in my childhood and all the things, all the signs, the collecting of toys and hockey cards and guitars, as you could see.
Yeah.
So that's again something that I just learned, and a new way to look at it, and it really helps me.
You know, there's a section in the big book that I'm not gonna be able to find it right now, and um, basically just talks about kind of acceptance
Hmm.
and um, just coming to the reality check that like this is just how it is, and this is how
Yeah,
you are, and the sooner that you realize that, sooner you can start actually like working on it, being on the other side. And I think we just I get so I got so hung up in those first couple of years, just like not drinking. That's all I was focusing in on versus like actually focusing on like what's the underpinning reason why all this stuff is happening.
right.
And I think that's the beauty of, your book. That's the beauty of what it is because it represents your addiction and your usage and drinking and drug using and all the things that you did and I did, they're 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 byproducts of what happened.
Yeah,
We had different traumas, very different traumas. But the traumas that we experienced led us to want to mask the pain and it led us to have the character defects.
yeah. And
And
we're gonna have to do a whole podcast one day on talking about trauma. One of my favorite podcasts that you had done was, oh man, who was the guy that was it Vig or was
Big
somebody else?
Adams.
Yeah,
Text him
where
to
you were talking about trauma, and it was like, man, like so much of that resonated with me. And what I've learned is like trauma is perceived,
Mhm.
right? So we always look at trauma, or I've always looked at trauma as, a veteran coming home from war that got his legs blown off, or, a victim of domestic violence, or somebody that's, had a tragic accident or lost a loved one in a very tragic event. And so when my parents got divorced, like my entire life, I've never, ever, ever thought of that as me having gone through a trauma. Right. And
But you
once
did.
I did, because if you
Mhm.
perceive it as a traumatic event or a traumatic series of events, then it's freaking trauma. And it took me to writing this book
To actually
to
realize
actually
it.
to actually realize
Yeah.
the trauma, which is one of the reasons why it's called In Case of Emergency Break Childhood,
Oh,
because
yeah.
that was the call to action. Like you have to actually fucking break that glass, get in there and face it. And so there's this one thing that I heard in this course that I took, and it really made me look at trauma very differently. And in the profession that I'm in, you have to be very, very aware of everyone that walks through the door
Sure.
and know that they might be carrying trauma with them, because anything you do or say
I would think
to
you
them,
would just assume that they are.
well, right, some people don't. Not everybody
I
assumes
mean, I
people
would
might have
if
trauma.
I did what you do, I would, but
Yeah. So this instructor said, okay, we're sitting in the room, the class, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we're all sitting here. Picture a grizzly bear bursting through the door and tearing the room apart and attacking all of us. How would you feel? And we were like, fucking scared, like really scared, like panicking and scared.
Yeah.
He said, great. He goes, people with trauma, the grizzly bear is always following them. It's always behind them. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
You know, like there are people that always have the grizzly bear looking, you know, they're looking right over their shoulder and it's there.
There's a lot of ways to kind of describe that, whether it's kind of the trauma, whether it's the insecurities, whether it's your own, you know, your own character defects. I mean, that's a really good way of thinking about it. We should definitely do one on trauma. We got to go and wrap up because we're at 55 minutes. Jason, I'm so stoked for you, bro. I'm so proud of you for putting this out. It was brave, man. And like I said, I'm so grateful that we know each other and we've become good friends out of this whole thing. And I'm really excited to see, where this thing goes, in the next year. Who knows, man? Like, this could become a fucking bestseller, and all of a sudden you're going to be on Jimmy Kimmel and talking about your addiction. So
if Jimmy Kimmel is on, who knows?
I have a feeling it will be. All right. Well, listen, everybody. First of all, Jason, love you, brother. Thank you so much.
I love you too, man. And thanks for all the support, bro. I appreciate it.
Of course. I love you, and
I love you.
I want everybody to read this book. The book is called, In Case of Emergency, Break Childhood, Hold It Up Again. For those that are listening through Spotify or Apple Podcasts, obviously you can't see it, but it's a lovely book with a green all-star high top with next to some pills. That's Vicodin. Yeah, I did that stuff. And a nice Grey Goose martini, which I drink a lot of those too. But just to wrap up the Sober Cold Bear podcast, once again, this is not a place to go if you want to get sober. This is a resource to you. It introduces you to amazing people like Jason that write incredible books about sobriety and recovery, and the brighter side of everything. It starts with the real simple, I need help. If you need help, ask for help, ask a loved one, reach out to me, reach out to Jason. Ask your best friend, tell your best friend. If you got to go to rehab, go to fucking rehab, but go to AA meetings. And it really comes down to like a simple theory. Stop drinking, go to AA, get a sponsor, work the steps. That's the formula. And that's kind of how things work. And I think, once you start doing that, you'll find that shit gets easier. Love you, brother. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you for being here.
I love you too, man. Thank you.
All right, everybody. We'll talk soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sometimes I feel like I want to fly without no wings. I elevate inside my mind. And sometimes